Hmm. Sure. That's two.
Really, Father, I just want to pray for Braxton, Lord, and Grant, Lord, and continue sharing with him, Lord, and figure out where he can be more, Lord, that he actually does start a life on the path to you. And everything.
Amen.
So, I want to say 2 nights ago, last night, something like that, I got talking with my girlfriend, and she goes to church and stuff. They actually got a mountain Bible that they're going to start coming here. They're talking about coming back here so we can come here. And we got talking with her about that and how asking her about her relationship with God and stuff. And she's super big into the Word. And so I started asking her questions like, oh, hey, would you do like a devotional with me, like a daily devotional?
Hmm.
We're doing a daily devotional now together. And
Awesome.
just so, I guess, so we can, like, get closer to God kind of together,
Sure.
help each other, keep each other accountable. And yeah, hope that goes good.
Yeah, that's where, even a lot of people, like I shared this stat that people who don't go to church or have a relationship with the Lord, the divorce rate is 56%. But also with Christians who are saved, people that are saved, that husband and wife, and they don't pray or pray together or pray any at all as a family, the divorce rate is 56%. But the divorce rate of a husband and wife who pray is 1%. And so, if that doesn't tell you how important it is for both husband and wife to have a relationship. So, when most relationships fail is when one side or the other is not walking with the Lord like they should. I'm not saying you got to be a perfect Christian, but I'm saying that your focus for your relationship has to be on the Lord. Like I always say, I don't want my wife to ever love me more than she loves Jesus, because that's when it's a problem. But when you're young and you're in love and you're dating, and because we just celebrated our 19th wedding anniversary, but it's still important to date your wife and things of that nature. But we always tell people, nobody ever told me this, but it's in high school, date to marry. When you graduate, date to marry. Whatever you're doing, make sure whoever you're dating is someone you might consider marrying. Because some people just do it for fun, and if we're dating just for fun, we're probably doing a lot of other things that aren't for fun. Again, sins feels good. If it doesn't feel good when you're sinning, you're not doing it right. That's what we always tell people, but it still doesn't mean it's good. But that's great that you had that conversation with her, because it's important to know if your boyfriend and girlfriend is saved.
Like, I already knew she did, she knew I was, I guess, just never really sat down and talked.
Yeah, because that's like when we go out and share the gospel, we'll have people that'll say, yes, I'm saved. Well, tell me what that means. Because a lot of people, to being saved is just being a good person. I've never stole your car or kicked you in the crotch. So I'm just a good person all the way around. So but it's nice to go, okay, tell me when you had that moment when you gave your life to Christ, when you accepted Him as your Savior. So that's awesome. Okay. 4? I need to have 4. I'll complete the circuit if there's one more. Because I have a conversation every day. Had one today, sitting in Mercy Hospital parking lot. All day. Okay. So, nobody else got anyone? All right. You guys ready to get started? Okay. So, your carry a friend relay that we had. Who has the clicker? Did I even give it to anybody? This is what we're talking about tonight, being motivated to see hurting people in need of healing, the healing touch of Jesus. So we did our carry a friend relay. Hopefully you can consider them a friend relay. Then so with your carry a friend relay, what strategy did your team use to transport your smaller person or people? Did you have a strategy? Piggyback. How well did that work? I seen a crash. Did the top get too heavy? Is that no?
No, I just hit a hole and then I tripped. I was like, well, ain't no recovering from this.
So to the people who won the race, what was your strategy? I can't hear you. Okay, cool. So you made like a little chain of some sort to be able to bend over. You had a retractable support on it. Okay. Anybody else? Yours did fail. We should have brought out the baby powder and rosin, some stickum spray. Yes. You know how much I preach stickum spray for basketball. When we played basketball in high school, they'd spray your hands with this stuff where you wouldn't drop the ball or you wouldn't catch it, it wouldn't slip through your hands. And it's like rosin, spray it on your hands. And now I bring it up and she just laughs at me that they don't use things like that anymore. Is it illegal to use rosin in basketball? It is? Well, yeah, baseball it is. But basketball, they used to, Coach Rowe's dad was my coach, and that guy would spray your hands down like you new layer of leather on your hands. And now I brought it up, I'm like, spray some of that, stick them on their hands. And she just laughs at me whenever I say that because it's not a thing. Yeah, stays stuck to their hand. So anyway, the strategy, would you have loved to have had more time to strategize your technique on how to get down? Would you have loved to have had a tool, like a blanket or some kind of apparatus to put them in and carry them or something like that nature? So what made the task difficult? Huh? Making sure you don't fall? Making sure you didn't drop them so you had a good grip, a good grasp on what you were trying to hold on to. Cruz would have loved to have not been sweating during the process. Would you rather we done it inside where it wasn't as far and you weren't sweating to death to try and do it? And was it awkward carrying that person? Did anybody carry anybody you didn't know and it was awkward? Did anybody carry was anybody the person being carried and you were mildly uncomfortable? Sid's yes, Callie's yes, I was uncomfortable as the day is long. When might a person need someone else to carry? We put her because most of the time you're supposed to pick them little small petite females to drag around in this, but some of you picked the boys. So what might a person need someone else to carry? Or when does someone need to be carried? When they're hurt, whenever they sprain their ankle or whatever. Has anybody ever been carried before when you were injured? Yes, no, maybe so. Yes. When else would you might need to carry someone? I've carried my kids plenty of times whenever they just too wore out to walk anymore when they were little. Anything else? My leg's itching. I mean, I've had to carry people across a creek or different things like that in the snow so they don't get their feet wet or whatever. But when have you had to carry someone else emotionally? Some of you are like, I ain't ever carried anybody emotionally because I'm a just detached person from human beings. You've never had to be there for somebody? Yeah, somebody had a bad day, you're going to carry them emotionally Maybe your words of wisdom was like my daughter's, suck less, suck it up, whatever of that nature. But some of you might have been a little more gentler with it. Anybody got another example of how you carried someone emotionally? I know we don't want to talk about our feelings. It's really weird to talk about your feelings. Some of you are like, I ain't got feelings. I play sports. I don't have feelings. I'm a man. I'm a boy in the hood. I ain't got no feelings. I root for the Chiefs. I definitely ain't got no feelings. I'm just reading shirts. Man, you're like the most unsupportive group I ever had sitting in here. Nobody cares about nobody. Well, we're going to look at an example of how you need to be caring about people. We're going to look at Acts 3, 1 through 12. How many of you are familiar with the story of the 4 dudes who carry their lame friend to Jesus? Anybody? Well, good. That's not what we're talking about today. We're going to be in Acts 3, 1 through 12. It says, are you ready? Yes. Acts 3, number 1. Peter and John went to the temple one afternoon to take part in the 3 o'clock prayer service. At what time? 3 o'clock afternoon. As they approached the temple, a man lame from birth was being carried in. Each day he was put beside the temple gate, the one called the Beautiful Gate, so he could beg from the people going into the temple. So did he have a strategy? Yeah, where was he placed? The gate, where people were coming in and out. In verse 3 it says, when he saw Peter and John about to enter, he asked them for some money. Peter and John looked at him intently. And Peter said, look at us. Does anybody have an intent look? Like, this is my intended look? Does anybody have a serious look? Nobody cares about nobody. Nobody has a serious look. So, says that when he saw Peter and John about to enter, he asked them for some money. Peter and John looked at him intently, and Peter said, look at us. The lame man looked at them eagerly, expecting some money. But Peter said, I don't have any silver or gold for you, but I'll give you what I have. In the name of Jesus Christ the Nazarene, get up and walk. Then Peter took the lame man by the right hand and helped him up. And as he did, the man's feet and ankles were instantly healed and strengthened. He jumped up, stood on his feet, and began to walk. Then walking and leaping and praising God, he went into the temple with them. All the people saw him walking and heard him praising God. When they realized he was the lame beggar they had seen so often at the Beautiful Gate, they were absolutely astounded. They all rushed out in amazement to Solomon's colonnade, where the man was holding tightly to Peter and John. Peter saw his opportunity and addressed the crowd. People of Israel, he said, what is so surprising about this? And why stare at us as though we had made this man walk by our own power or godliness? So, when you read this story, we're going to talk about some study questions with it. It says, how long had the lame man been that way, and how often had he sat at the entrance of the temple gate? So, how long had this man sat there? Do you remember? Every day. He sat there every day at this gate. And so it was a routine for him. Every day people would take him, set him at the gate. He would beg for money, and then somebody would come back and pick him up every day and take him back home. So were there people dedicated in his life to carry him to a certain destination? Now, if you were with us Sunday night, we talked about a different kind of guy who was begging for money, and he was a cheater and a liar. But this guy actually had a definite need of people to carry him to us. Because what would have happened if this guy would have had nobody to carry him to the gate? He wouldn't have been healed, but what would have happened to his everyday life if no one had ever carried him to the gate, if his bros just decided to stop? He starved to death. This was not welfare era, okay? There was no, you didn't get a check for staying home and doing nothing. Okay, this is not America. This was where you either had a job, you had people that supported you, or you died. It's just that simple. You would starve to death and die if you didn't have someone to take care of you. So he had people dedicated in his life, most likely 4, to carry him every day to where he sat and where he would beg for money, knew exactly what time to be there. So even did his own friends have a routine to go pick him up and take him there every day. Do you have anybody in your life right now that you have dedicated yourself to be their support group? They're that person that walks with them through something. If not, at some point or in time in your life, someone is going to come up in need. Someone's going to come up in your life. They're going to need something. And you choose whether you support them or whether you not. Because one of the big deals we love to do is we like to pray for lost people, but what else do we like to do for lost people? We like to care for them. We like to let them know that we see them, that we love them. Even if they have different values, different views, if their home life is different, they go to a different school, they're a different gender, they're different ideas on sexual orientation, whatever it is, we're trying to make sure they know we still care about them. Even if maybe there's some sin in their life we don't agree with, or maybe a lifestyle, we still want to let them know that they care. And so these guys would pick this dude up. And were the guys that picked him up and carried him every day to the gate ever mentioned? No, not in this story. Now, we go to the 4 guys who carry the dude to Peter's house and drop him through the roof. They talk about that story, or those 4 guys, but nobody ever talks about these guys. They're kind of behind the scenes. How many of you are okay with being behind the scene? You don't need the attention. Anybody that way? How many of you are those people that you kind of like the attention sometimes? You like a little pat on the back. Is it okay to like a pat on the back? It is okay to like it. It's okay. It's not okay when you take it too far, when it's look at me, look at me, look at me. This is what I've done. When in reality, who's really making your body capable to be able to do the things you're doing? Yeah, the Lord is. So anyway, we look at the next one. It says, how could good God-seeking people get caught up in the religion in such a way that Jesus that caused them to overlook this hurting man for years? How are these people getting so caught up in their religious life that they just walked right past this guy every day? Because what was something they couldn't do on the Sabbath day? Work. So healing someone would be work, right? For this guy to get up and start walking would be what? Work. So this guy is something he can't do, is he can't get up and walk. So is there things where people get too religious versus trying to do good things for people? Yeah, I talked to a guy today. Matter of fact, we were talking about outreach, and he asked me, he said, I know you go from here to here to here. I've seen your stuff on Facebook for your Go Share Days. Some days you're in Arkansas, sometimes you're in McDonald County way over there, sometimes you're up in Monette, sometimes you're in Cassville. He said, this last time I saw you were in Washburn Sligman. He goes, so when you go to these other towns, because some of them are pretty far off, so to invite somebody to come to your church from Rogers, that's a pretty good distance. I said, we don't invite people to come to our church. I said, when we go out, we're not inviting people to our church. We're inviting people to heaven. That's what we're doing. We show them some kind of love by giving them a gift bag. If you haven't been a part of our Go Share Days, you're missing out, really. Because ask any of them that go, it's what I love. I love seeing the ones that show up. They're excited to go. They're excited to go. Knocking on doors is nervous. It makes you nervous, right? Yeah, it is. You are nervous. But when you have a great contact, how is the rest of your day changed? Yeah, it's just upside down. But it still is nerve-wracking. You go knock on a door and say, hey, my name's Doug. I'm with Mission Baptist Youth. We're just going out in the community today to share God's love with people. I have a gift bag here for you. It has some snacks in it, some Little Debbie's, has a water bottle in there that's free. It has some hand sanitizer, some soaps. I said, there's all kinds of good stuff in here, and we just love to give it to you. Would you love to have one of our gift bags? And what do most people say? Sure. So we'll give them the gift bag, except we've had a couple that said no, but we'll pray for them. And so anyway, and then the next thing I go into with them is like, hey, we're just offering to pray for you. Is there anything we can pray for you in your life right now? And probably about, would you say, for those of you that go, would you say like 90% of them, am I shooting too high? Or is that 90% of them say something along the lines that we can pray for them? And then if we can get them to thinking about God, can we have a conversation about God? And so that's why we love to ask them if we can pray for them, because we want to open that door to a religious conversation. Say, well, cool, you let us pray for you, so do you believe in God? Do you have any religious beliefs? Do you go to church anywhere? And most of the time, people will either tell you some crazy belief that they have. Maybe it's the same as yours. I know that when we went to Cassville last time, the lower apartments at the complex we were at, my wife comes back and says, hey, they're all Christians except for one lady, and they're working on her, which is really encouraging to hear that a group of people are going after somebody in their apartment complex. But just that simple act of giving people something for free, does that give you an avenue to be able to talk to them? Yeah, because this is like Peter and John walk up to this guy and they're like, I don't have any money to give you, but what I do have for you is life. And so that's what we're trying to do with these people. I got a gift bag for you. I've got some hand sanitizer that'll take away the germs, but I want to give you Jesus that'll take away the sin. Okay, I want to give you, there's some soap in here that'll wash all the dander out of your hair, but I want to give you something that'll wash all the sins away in your life. There's some snacks in here that I'll give you that are like a sweet, tasty treat, but I want to give you the word of Jesus that tastes like honey in your mouth. So just different ways to open up and talk to these people and get them to say, hey, these people do actually love that we exist. Because it's crazy when you go to somewhere and you give them something like this and they're like, we've never had a church show up. We've never had anybody come to our door and care for us and love this way, because 9 times out of the 10, they think we're some kind of religious nuts that are trying to shove Jesus down their throat. And that's not us. If they tell us they don't want to pray with us, you know what we do? We tell them we love them and just leave. Because do I want to be able to revisit that door again someday? Absolutely. So a lot of people get caught up. I was telling him about it, and he thought it was weird that we didn't invite people to our church, that we told them where other churches in the area were that they could get connected to. Because we're trying to destroy the mentality that it's my church against your church. That's why whenever we do like AAA Chick-fil-A, I invite every church in the area, post it on Facebook, say, Instagram, whatever. You are invited to come here. We are not wanting to steal any of your students. We're not going to do anything of that nature. We just want to grow gospel-advancing youth groups. And usually the Assembly of God Church up the road comes down, and we get to do that with them. And oh goodness, they're a different doctrine. Is that bad? They're Assembly of God Church, and we're the Baptists. Can we get along with each other? 100%. As soon as this loads. The futility of religious comfort. Can you get too comfortable in your religion? Yes. How can you get too comfortable as a Christian? Yes. Yeah, do you ever heard the term pew warmer? Somebody that just shows up on Sunday and their butt just warms a spot on a bench, in our case, a chair, and that's all they do. They walk in, they listen to the music, listen to a preacher preach a message, walk out the door. No involvement whatsoever in the church, nothing, have no desire to take any of this any further because they're comfortable. Do you know how many times me and my wife have even said, man, it'd be nice to go to church somewhere and just sit on the back row and not have any responsibilities whatsoever. Just blend in, because it gets exhausting sometimes just trying to do everything and keep up. Because how many of you love just to be lost in the crowd sometimes? If you're in class and the teacher's teaching, how many of you would love to just blend in and they never called on your name? Almost everybody in here is going, yes. How many of you love it when the teacher calls your name in class? It depends on if you know the answer or not. That's the truth of it. And a lot of people who come to church, there's a message in that, because a lot of people come to church, they don't really know the answer to hardly anything of what they're doing. That's why, we're going to go do the outreach this Sunday with the Love Out Loud deal that they're doing. And if you're available, we're going to the Superstop. And I think they're going to give us like water bottles or something to pass out. Some cookies, so some treats to pass out to them with the church's information on it. And that is super. It's great because we want people to know where we are. But what do we need to do besides that? We got to share Jesus with them. We have to ask them about their salvation. If we're going to be pumping gas there, because Sunday after church is out, what time are we doing that? It's like 1 to 3. So after that's over, if you're going with us to the Superstop, we're going to have a crash run course on how to have like a 2-minute gospel conversation. because it don't take that long to pump people's gas up. And most people getting gas want to do what? Go. Okay, they want to gas and go. They want to get out of there. That's why paying the pump. They don't even go inside anymore. So we don't want to be comfortable in just being a church member. I don't want to be comfortable just being in a youth group. I don't want to be comfortable just sitting over there in the sound booth doing whatever on Sunday. I don't want to get that way. These guys were on their way to, Peter and John were on their way to a prayer service. Now, if you're on your way to a prayer service, you're on your way to do what? Pray. So, the interpretation of a prayer service, how would you define that to somebody? If we were to have just a night of prayer, would you show up? You're going to say yes, but how many would be like, we're going to do a sit all night and talk about stuff we need to pray about, and I'm going to have to pray with people in a group. If I told you that you're going to have to come in here tonight, we're going to break up into groups, and you're going to sit over there together, and you're going to have to pour out something that you need prayed for, I won't even put you on the spot. Do you think the numbers would be as good as they are? Do you think some people would stay home because they don't want to talk about it, or they don't want to pray? Why do most people not want to pray? They don't know how. Why do most people not know how to pray? They just never have made a routine of it. They've never even attempted. They've never even just tried to do it on their own. Does it say how to pray in the Bible? Absolutely. Jesus taught them straight up how to pray the Lord's Prayer. It's in the Bible. So the prayer service, we teach you how to care for people. We teach you how to pray for people. So we want to make sure that you are praying for people in your life. We want to make sure that, Peter and John, this guy's been sitting there at this gate for a long time. So odds are Peter and John have walked by this guy before, right? So when we walk by hurting people, because they had him right in their face. When they would walk into church to go to the prayer service, where there's hurting people right there at the gates. Yes, that's where they sat to beg. And so that's where I love when we go to LTC, we stop at the International House of Prayer on the way back. And when you walk in the door to the International House of Prayer, there's a pamphlet right there that someone has texted, mailed, called in, emailed a prayer request, and you get to pick that up, and you get to take it in there, and you get to sit down and pray over that, if you choose to. But is it easier to ignore stuff? Because do we spend more time praying for our own things than we do other people? A lot of Christians pray more for themselves than they do the people around them. Do you know what it's called to pray for other people? It starts with an I. Intercessory prayer. Intercessory means go between. That means you are going between this person's need and heaven, saying, this is what's going on in my friend's life. I want to pray for that. This is what's going on at their house. I want to pray for that. This is what they're going through emotionally. I want to pray for that. They've went through a breakup. Their best friend's done this. Whatever it is, they've wrecked their car. They got into drugs or smoking, cussing, drinking, whatever you want to throw out there sin-wise, just being mean. You can be a go-between for that. That's where we have that prayer board over there that people have really stopped taking advantage of, where you can write down a prayer request, roll it up, stick it in that wire, and somebody walks by and picks it up. There's one up there right now with something. Somebody has remembered and wrote something down. So if you have a prayer request that you want prayed for anonymously, write it on the board sometime or on that piece of paper, stick it in that chicken wire, and somebody in here needs to be a buddy and pull it out and take it home and pray for it. So what was the reaction of the religious people in this story? If they're religious, they were legalistic. They were of the law. So what did the law say they couldn't do? Couldn't work. Couldn't do anything. So what was the reaction of religious people to this miracle? They were mad. They were offended. They were upset. Could you imagine people being upset because somebody that was lame was able to get up and walk now? Can you imagine that? Seeing the joy on this guy's face, he's jumping and hugging people, and he's telling everybody what's happened, and you got these people over there that have the just go ahead and try and bless me look on it. You know, the people that whenever they walk out of a room, it lights up? Those kind of people? Do you know them? Yes, I've been guilty of being that person before. Catch me on the wrong day, and I can be that person. But why were they mad? Because he healed them. And they were too caught up in their own thinking. They were caught up in their own thinking instead of whose thinking? God's thinking, Jesus' love. They were too caught up in that to be able to focus on what had happened in front of them. So, what can we do as Christians when it comes to caring for someone? Okay, so send them a text message? Yeah, because that's what your generation is really into. And even, I find myself with even more adults now that would rather talk to you via text message than a phone call for some reason. So send them a message. Send them a message of what? Yeah, so some form of encouragement, something to let them know that you actually care they exist. Because people don't care how much you know, they want to know how much you care. I've had some conversations this week with people who've lost loved ones, and I said, hey, I'm going to set an alarm on my phone 2 weeks out to reach out to you. Because when someone in your family passes away, people are usually at your house for maybe a week, 2 weeks maybe, checking on you, but then what happens? They just fall off. Doesn't mean they're bad people, just life moves on. But what's with that person who's still sitting there hurting? Life has not moved on. It still hurts and it's still at a standstill. So I said, hey, I'm just telling you this ahead of time. When I call you in a few weeks, it's not weird. I just want to make sure you know people still think of you and still love your family. Because odds are the phone calls are going to slow down. They're going to stop. People are going to stop checking on you, coming over and doing things for you. Because what do we as Baptists do when someone has a maybe an injury or a death in the family? What do? We take food. That's what we do. We take food over there, or we paint their fence, or we mow their yard. We do all that stuff like that, and then what happens? Yeah, they got to start cooking for themselves again, and they got to mow their own yard because we've just kind of. Not that I want you to mow their yard for the rest of your life. I'm not saying that, but it just seems like we forget that people move on. That's one of the things. Even I didn't have that experience when my mother passed away, because when my mom passed away, I got on a bus and took kids to camp. Then I got back and took kids to LTC. So I didn't have that for 2 weeks, but I've seen that in different things. I remember I got injured one time. My shoulder had to be reconstructed, and I was at home. And do you know, the guy was a little different, but one person showed up at my house because I couldn't go nowhere. I could just sit there in the house in a recliner. Couldn't drive because my truck was a Standard. So when your arm is tied to you, can you drive a Standard that easy? You can still do it, but it's not that easy. A guy comes by and he goes, hey man, I'm going to the gun shop. You want to go with me? I'm like, sure. And this guy was not a close friend of mine. He's just a person who knew how to do what? How to care for someone. And so he would come and get me like every other day, and we'd go to the gun shop. I had no money to buy no guns, just, it was a guy thing, go to the gun shop. We sat around and grunted a lot or something, you know. But he picked me up almost like every day and say, hey, let's go to the gun shop. Let's go here, do that. Didn't really have a close relationship with this guy at all. We knew each other. He went to church here. But he was really good at caring for people. And if you're one of those people, we need you. You may not be that great at praying, really wish you would be, but you may not be that good at sharing the gospel with people, or not the person who knocks on the door and talks to people, but you might be really good at what? Caring for someone. You might be the person that I need to carry the bag, that hands it to the person on the door, through the door. You might be that person who's able to care for that person in a way that whenever I meet them, they say, hey, Christians really do love people. I'm going to listen to this guy. And we can go on, because this is the most awkward word that you're going to use, gentlemen. Beautiful. What are we trying to create out of something bad? We're trying to create something beautiful. I'm not trying to say, it goes from being a little nasty-looking cocoon into a beautiful butterfly. Not of that nature. But what am I trying to make beautiful out of a bad situation? People's relationship with Jesus. I'm trying to make sure that they know there's something out there a whole lot prettier than the bad stuff they're going through. Peter and John walk up to this guy. What was he expecting? Money. And I love the story a little bit, because when you dig deep into it, They tell the guy, "You're healed. Get up." What did Peter have to do with him? He had to reach down. Because when we go to the one guy who was a stinking phony, when he got healed, he jumped up immediately. But with this guy, Peter had to do what? He had to reach down and help him up. He could have just stood there and said, "You're healed." And what would that guy done? He probably would have argued with him, sitting there on the ground. But Peter took a little bit further and reached down and grabbed a hold of him. He made physical contact. I know you don't want to admit it, but how many of you like a hug? Depends on who it is. Yeah, but what if it's someone that cares about you, gives you a hug? Guys are like, "I'm not hugging nobody. It's not even going to happen." Okay. I wasn't either until I met Chris Selby, and then he forced me into being a hugger or accepting hugs. I don't accept compliments very well. I'm just like, "Yeah, it's great. That was my job. Let's move on." That's just my mentality. But there's this love language test that you put out there, and some of you, physical touch may be your love language. You just love for someone to hold your hand or give you a hug or pat you on the shoulder or squeeze your little... Grant with that lady over in Wheaton, she about wore his cheeks out. She was squeezing his cheeks and I just got to squeeze your cheeks all the time. And I'm sure Grant was like, "Lady, I'm not like 5. But she was loving to squeeze his cheeks. But these guys, they reach down. Peter reaches down and does what? Pulls him up. And what does the guy do? Man, he is jumping. He's excited. He's telling people. And whenever the religious leaders came outside, what was he doing to Peter and John? He was clinging to them. He was holding on to them because the experience he had with them was so great, he didn't want to let it go. Has anybody ever had something happen in your life that was so great, you just hated to see it fade? Because it was going to. Do you know why flowers are pretty? Anybody know why flowers are pretty? My friend Zane Black educated me on this a few years ago, and I've stole it and used it. Because we're just here for a little while. That's it. You'll have moments in your life that are beautiful moments. You'll have sunsets that you'll never get back. You'll have time with a girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, friend, parents, whatever, that you'll never get back. But you have the memory of it, don't you? So does a flower come back the next year? Usually most of them do. I have a hillside right now full of daisies, and we hate those things. But senior photo people, we got a lady who keeps saying all the time she's going to come down and take pictures of seniors laying in the daisies, but she never has yet. But it's a hillside full of daisies, and they are in full bloom right now. But nobody wants to lay in them because they'll be sneezing and hacking. It really is a beautiful hillside because it's beautiful flowers. But what's going to happen as soon as it starts getting hot? They go away. They're done. They're beautiful because they're here for a little while. Some of you may be that person that enters into someone's life, and you're beautiful to them because of what you've cared for them. And you may be just with them for a little while. Sunday, you choose whether you're a part of an outreach or not. June 10th, we're going to go do a block party. You choose whether you're a part of it or not. And if you're not for no good reason, let's put it that way, if you're not a part of our Go Share Days or any of our outreaches, you're missing some really beautiful moments with people. You kind of got to let down the cool card a little bit that you think you're wearing, that you're not really wearing that well, and actually be a little vulnerable to people. Because Peter and John could have walked right on past this guy. Their life was fine. That's what we have to have. There's no apathy. Our life is fine. We can just keep on walking. Everything in my fiber right now is doing everything it can to not walk to that door and tell all them kids to quit screaming because I'm trying to teach class. But it's fine, isn't it? Because it's beautiful. There's children at church instead of at home playing video games. That's what I'm trying to focus on right now instead of the devil. So, are you tracking with me on caring for people? Yeah, don't just pass right by them. If you see a need, is that an opportunity to have a conversation? It is. And it may not be a gospel conversation. I thought my friend Greg was going to have a fit on his last podcast when the guy he had on there said, you know what, I'm going to drive Greg crazy, but not every conversation has to be a gospel conversation. And Greg starts yelling heresy at him. It's a joke. But do we have to go straight to the gospel when we talk to people? We don't have to. Sometimes it's just a caring moment for them where we can revisit and come back when it's set up to share. Are you tracking with me? You making sense? Would you love to have more time to strategize to do your race again? What would you do different? Not fall. Because everybody wants to. How many of you are competitive? You really wanted to win. It's just a silly church game, but you really wanted to win. You want to be that guy. How many of you are really disappointed you didn't win? It's okay. Sometimes people slam the door in your face. Sometimes people block you on Instagram. If Lauren was here, that'd mean a lot more. It's just the way it is. So look for an opportunity this week to care for somebody, to where you can set up a conversation. You're pointing at me for some reason. Huh? Oh, yeah. I forgot I took it off this, so it would be on there. I want to show you a video real quick. The quality's not that great because it's an old movie. So, anyway, go ahead.
Can I interest you in one of my creations, young lady? How about this nice frog?
I'm sorry, I don't have any cash on me.
Okay. Today is a beautiful day, right?
I guess.
Describe it to me.
What?
Sound's not with
Describe
it
it to me. And this piece of art is yours.
Okay. There's some yellow flowers blooming on it.
Forsythia.
Yeah. And some purple ones, too.
Hyacinth.
You really like flowers, huh?
Oh, yeah. What's going on across the street?
It's just an ordinary day in New York City, you know? People rushing back and forth, cars driving, everybody's got somewhere to go, somewhere to be. Nobody really cares about nothing. It's like a huge living clock. Never stops.
Oh, I wish I could see that. Thank you. And you keep it real. I got my eye on you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
So what was the guy? He's blind. Would he have loved to have money for what he had just to give away? Absolutely. But what did he take in place of it? Oh. Huh? Yeah, just a description of what the day looked like. Just to have a description of what was going on around him because he can't see. He doesn't know. It's kind of obvious that maybe he says, God closed my eyes. So could he have seen before? Yeah, because she starts describing a flower and he knew exactly what flower it was. But what did the guy, he gave her a gift. Did it cost her anything? Just what did it cost her? Huh? A description, but what did it take to give that description? Time. Just to stop, take your time. She could have gave less of a description. Concrete, cars, people. But she went into more detail, didn't she? Sometimes people are just wanting you to go a little bit further, spend a little time, show them that you care. Listen to what they have to say. How many of you are good listeners? How many of you are terrible listeners? You want to be the one talking. You got a lot to say. I get in that spot. You want to talk about what's going on with you? But some of you, God has given you the gift to not talk, to listen. You have a really rare gift. I want you to know that. If you're a person that's geared more towards listening to people than talking about yourself, you have a very rare gift. Never lose it, because people need you to have it. If you're someone who prays for people constantly, don't ever lose that. They need you. I pray for my lost friends every morning. Every morning, I get out my Bible app, do my Bible study, and my next button is my Life in 6 Words app. And I look at my list there, and I apply my Bible study to my group I'm praying for, and ask God to mold those set of verses around those people today to where it will bring them closer to Christ. And then I just hit a little button, says I prayed for them, and my good friends that dare to share know that I'm praying for my lost friends and family. Can you take, how much time are you going to spend on your phone on social media if you have it tonight? How much are you going to spend on it today? How much time are you going to spend on a video game today? Hours. But is there 15 minutes out of your life you could just shoot someone a text, maybe a phone call, drive to see them, do something kind for your parents? That'd be weird. Do something nice for them tonight. I'm not asking you to rub their stinky feet, but ask them if you can bring them something to drink. Because maybe your parents are lost. Maybe they don't know Christ. Maybe it's a brother or sister. You ever had somebody ask you, like, why are you being so nice to me? So you get to tell them. So I'm trying to show you the love of Jesus. Because God's convicted my heart to think about you today. So that's what I'm doing. Are they going to look at you like you're weird? Yeah, they might look at you like my eye went straight. They think something's up. They might think you have a motive. If you did something nice for your folks tonight, what are they going to say? What do you want? Yeah, that's what I got all the time. Every time I do something nice for my parents, I'll be like, what do you want? Lord Gene did something nice for me tonight. I would wonder what the motives were. Actually, I'd worry more about her brother. Okay, you guys tracking? You going to be able to care for someone this week? I hope so. Whether it's at work, practice, home, just out on the street. How crazy is it just to open the door for somebody? At a gas station, just open the door for them. Let them go in front of you in line. Okay, you got it? Okay. You want to sing? She wants to sing. We're going to sing.